Alrighty, howdy everybody. Welcome to this episode of Talk Out. Today I'm here with one of my closest friends, Margaret, and we are going to discuss and just have a free-flowing conversation on the concept of free-range parenting. What is good about it? What's bad about it? Is this something that you would actually ever do with your child? So, Margaret, I'll just start off by asking you that question. Is free range parenting something you'd feel comfortable doing with your two children?
Hello, hello, everyone. This is Margaret. Um, I think so. I would incorporate many aspects of it in terms of just kind of letting kids have their own independence
Yeah.
and their selection of things.
Mm,
For example, like what we do today,
yeah.
or kind of like the structure of the day. I feel like I'll probably take it in that, but I don't think I'll feel comfortable showing going off the examples of the video, like having the kids go on the bus and
Mm.
train or like subway by themselves. I think the youngest kid at the time was 6 or 9,
9 years old,
which
yeah.
actually I don't, and it also depends how your kid is, because
Yeah.
if you, I think it really depends on your kid's personality and strengths.
Yeah.
Because for example, Emmy's really independent. She's 4 right now.
Yeah.
I feel like by 9, she could be a whole different child or really be super aware, super keen of her surroundings. And if a child's like that, then maybe I'll feel comfortable.
Mm.
But I feel like I won't know that bridge until I cross it. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's definitely something to explore. And I think the only thing that really does come to mind for me as a parent of a 3-year old and a 4-year old, because they're little still, you as a parent project your own fears onto your kids.
Mm.
For example, today when we were at the boats
Yeah, yeah.
and you saw how I freaked out when Emmy Mar was in front of the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fear of mine that I would have to like swim after her or like go get her in that water.
Yeah.
So like I went crazy, and oh my god, I felt like my heart was literally pumping out of my chest, and I had to go to her and like be by her side. But she was
Mm.
probably perfectly fine, and she wasn't gonna like throw herself into the water. She was
Mm.
just doing what a kid does, which is, oh, they see something they want to explore. But because that's my fear, like I initially went into like helicopter mom and needed to keep her with me. So I think with that, you have to explore your own fears too and see what you're comfortable with. And I think that's what you then eventually lead to have your kids be comfortable with. But I really like the idea of challenging yourself to
Mm.
let them be comfortable with more things. And then again, and in that, challenge yourself to be comfortable in whether it's in a scenario that you might not be great at. For example, one of my friends, she hates jumping,
Yeah.
and she like has a weird fear about trampoline parks,
Really?
but her
Okay.
kids love trampoline parks, so she
Yeah.
has to like face those fears and take them. But when they were
Wow.
younger, she never took them. It took until they were older and they were able to talk, and then they were like, "Mom, all our other kids are going to a trampoline park. We want to go too." And then boom, she started to take them. So it's also being able to listen to their suggestions or
Yeah.
things that they want to do, and then again pushing yourself to become comfortable with that.
Wow. Oh, that's really interesting. I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
And this was something that had come up with me recently. So obviously, I don't have a child, so this is gonna come from a very different perspective. I basically just have a dog, which I treat like a child. But
And you care for like a child as well. It's
yeah,
important to say that.
for sure. But it's a different level of responsibility because
Yeah.
like I can give my dog more independence, and
Yeah.
there's not this um I don't feel like there's a legal or social pressure for me to,
Yes.
treat a
Yes.
dog a certain way. But what's so interesting is that like I feel like I'm pretty much free range with the way I raise him.
Mm.
As long as, he comes back and I have and he knows all the basic commands, I kind of let him run free off leash at the park, and then he'll come to me when I call him. So I go to the park, and there's a woman, super wonderful, sweet woman, uh, and sometimes we bump into her while we're at the park. And what's so interesting is that she is more of a helicopter parent with her dog, and
Mm.
I'm not with mine. And and so what's been fascinating is that like whenever our dogs are playing, she's like, "Oh my God, Elmer, please don't do that. Oh my God, Elmer, you might hurt his paw. Oh my God, did you hear his paw?" And I'm just like, "Well, if my dog hurt his paw, he'll just come to me and then I'll walk him home." But like I'm not, because he's
Yeah.
just bound to get hurt because
Yeah.
he's a wild animal and I treat him as such. I just let him run free and then I tire him out and I bring him home to nap. So but I don't have that social pressure. It's very easy for me, you know.
Yeah.
How about you as a parent where you have to deal with like other parents' insecurities? How do you
Yes.
balance that out?
That is a tough balancing act. You kind of just have to not really care
Mm,
about what other parents think. I mean, you kind of go through that stage where you can handle criticism and not let it affect your parenting style, but that
mm,
takes confidence.
yeah,
So I think if you're starting in the parent world and the parent journey, whether you just had a baby, you adopted a baby or whatever, it takes time for you to own that and be like, wait, no, like I'm a parent, like I'm raising this kid, this is my
mm,
responsibility, and I'm gonna decide what I want to decide. But it's hard to get to that place. I'm in that place now
yeah,
where like I look at my kids, they're 3 and 4, and I'm like, okay, I know enough to trust my own decisions
yeah,
and not that I know at all. There's still so much that I need to learn, and I'm always open to learning and
mm,
implementing different strategies. But the pressure is real, bro. Like
yeah.
people will, even that lady, like she was labeled world's worst
World's worst
mom
mom. Yeah.
for introducing a new thing. But that's what happens
Mm,
when people introduce a new thing. We attack that and we want to like not accept it because we just hate changing ourselves, and
mm,
we hate change. But the pressure is real, and you get it from outside, you get it from strangers, and you get it from your family. I'm
mm,
Dominican. I get a lot of pressure from my family, and they might intend to, they might not. But parents want you to do the same thing how you did it. And
mm,
I bumped heads with my mom a lot, especially when they were really early,
mm,
because they want to continue to put on you all these myths and ideas that were put on them, like, oh, you can't eat or drink anything while you're breastfeeding.
mm,
Bro, yes, I can. Like, literally, I can drink water, I can have a slice of pizza. But, my mom's generation thought that they couldn't. You're
mm,
breastfeeding, that's all you're doing. You cannot drink or do anything else. But yeah, the pressure is real. I think it just takes you gaining your own confidence as a parent
mm,
to really be able to hush those voices
mm,
and be like, okay, no, like I'm not gonna let you affect what I decide to do with my child. But it is hard, and it takes like time for you to get there. Like even especially in out like being outside, like so many times. And the thing is too that you think everybody's like judging you, because that's what I think
mm,
sometimes as a parent. Like I'll be going to the park by myself with the girls, and it's time to go home. And Emmy
mhm,
will do a tantrum, or like, she'll get into the deepest part of the park that I can't reach her, and then like she won't want to leave. Like she never wants to stop playing time. My family's like, squeeze her hand
yeah,
or squeeze her or like pellícala, like do something.
mm.
And I tried that. And she started screaming in the middle of the park, Mommy, you're hurting me. Mommy, you're hurting me. And all these parents were just looking, and like they probably weren't even like thinking too much into it, but I was mortified. Like I was like,
Mm,
oh my God, they're thinking I'm like abusing my child. Chances are they probably they couldn't care less.
yeah, yeah.
But in your mind, you just think that it's such a bigger deal.
Mm,
But it's real. I mean, you get pressure from family, from other friends that have kids and maybe been doing it for a long time. You get pressure from society when they're like, "Oh no, you can't." You see what those people experience when they introduce the free range parenting.
yeah.
So it's real.
That's okay. So again, I don't have kids, so I can only talk about it from things I know about. Teaching and teaching in ninth grade students. What's been so interesting is like giving kids the necessary awareness
Mm-hmm.
of how to behave in different places. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, with me, I give my kids a deadline. I give them what's called either a soft deadline or a hard deadline. But once that deadline actually comes, I actually tell them that, like, okay, now you can't turn in any more work. Whatever you didn't turn in, you're just gonna get an F for. Like you're just gonna get no credit for. And then the
Right.
kids would be like, well, Mister, in X, Y, and Z's class, I'm able to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's their class. Like this doesn't happen here in this class. This is
Yeah.
a very, very different space. So this idea of like helping the kids know how to code switch, it's
Yeah.
really interesting, but it's easy for me to say that because the kids I teach are 15 years old. I teach
Right.
ninth grade
Right.
students.
Right. Yeah.
Is this something that you have to do as a parent for your kids as well? It's like we're in school, this teacher has this role, but here at home,
Yeah.
you can't, I don't know, chew your shoes. I don't know what the
Yeah.
kids do,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, no, that's a huge part of it too, and especially because when you're raising kids, you have to show them everything. You
Mm,
have to make them aware of their environments. You know what I mean? Like I remember I took the girls to a library for the first time when they were really younger, and oof, you know how they are. They're loud kids,
yeah,
and
exactly.
like it was not a good experience. But I also didn't prepare myself for it. I didn't
Mm,
have a conversation with them beforehand, like, hey guys, we're gonna go to a library. And this is what you do at a library. You sit
mm,
quietly and you read, or have them watch an episode of, Peppa Pig or somewhere where the kids go to the library. So they start to
mm,
understand that. Or let's read a book about going to the library. I didn't do that. I literally just
mm,
took them to the library, and in my mind I'm like, oh, they know what to do, but it's like, no, they don't. So
mm.
everything really, when everything is done for the first time, it just takes like preparation and thinking about it, and reminding yourself like that your kid doesn't inherently know how to be different in different environments. They're
Yeah.
just going to be themselves. At the park, when we were at the boat and Emmy was being extra loud, and then the boat guy was like, we can still use our inside voices even if we're outside. And as a parent, like, you saw me kind
Yeah,
of bitter. Like I was
yeah.
like, oh, he's telling my kid to be quiet, but it's because my kid was being really, really loud.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't even listen. He couldn't even hear like what the other parents were saying. So again, it's like, not taking things like that personally. Like I feel like I would have taken that experience when I was a younger parent, or like, oh my god, like, or like
Mm.
felt embarrassed by it. But now I'm like, she was being loud.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a normal response. And the thing too that I've learned with raising my own kids, it's seeing people's comfortability around kids.
Mm.
I come from a place where kids are around all the time. I'm
Yeah.
Dominican, I used to babysit kids. Oh, when she asked the question about, oh, what would you have done? What did you do when you were younger that you probably wouldn't do now? Like, I remember I was like taking care of mad kids when I was like mad young,
Really?
like 13 to 12. And it's because I always been kind of responsible.
Yeah.
So my parents just left that with, like, me now being a parent. I don't think I will ever trust like an 11-year-old to take care of like other little kids. But they did that with us, and we
Yeah.
were fine, so it was okay.
Yeah.
But that was just interesting. That came to my mind.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, no, it just, I would have like reacted a different way before. But it's like, no, you have to understand that like other kids, sometimes other people also are not around children all the
Yeah.
time. So a lot of
Mm.
adults don't know how to switch their behavior when they're around kids. And
Mm.
that's something that I see a lot of people just kind of being, and more, I think I see that behavior more in like white people, I would
Mm.
say. I think I met like a lot of people of color, or like, minorities. They seem to be more comfortable around children.
Mm.
But I've met a lot of like Caucasian people that either just are not around kids all the time, so they kind of don't know what to do. And it's like
Mm.
interesting to see from that perspective too. But absolutely, you have to teach your kids like how to be in different environments. But that doesn't come naturally. Like they just don't, like, they're not, or at least my kids, they're not like, oh, we're at a different space, like let me adjust my behavior. No, you have to remind them like, hey, we're here now, so we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Because they're just gonna keep going. So I don't know what a free range parent would say in that. Like, would they teach their kids to be
Mm,
different, and like, or would they just let the kids be themselves? I don't know. From the type of parent I am, I kind of try to just show them like, hey, we're here, we can be loud, like, but we're in a movie theater now and we're not gonna talk.
yeah.
We're just gonna listen and watch the movie. And it might not work. They might talk through the whole movie. I don't know. I've only
Mm.
taken them to the movies when they were really younger. I actually haven't taken to the movie now, so I don't even know how they would behave.
We'll find
And
out
it's also
tomorrow.
right. It's also like, bro, you just find out when it is. Like when
Yeah.
it comes, and you find out. Because honestly, like also you can't prepare for everything, and
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned too. I think a lot of parents feel like this pressure that you have to prepare for everything, and you absolutely can, but you also can't.
Yeah.
You can and you can't. Like there's no way that you can't that you can prepare for everything.
Yeah.
It's like Dory when like Marlon was like talking about Nemo. You've seen Finding Nemo,
Oh my
right?
God. Yeah, she says
And
something.
she says something like, I think Marlon was like, well, I want to protect him from something bad happening to him. And then Dory, of course, being Dory, was like, well, you can't protect him from something happening to him, because then nothing will ever happen to him. Like something like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't,
yeah.
you can't have like a plan for everything single thing, because you're not going to make room for the unplanned things, which
Yeah.
usually end up being the best things, the best memories.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a balancing act. You have to, and you can again just have to trust what you're comfortable with.
Mm.
Being a parent just challenges you and exposes you to be comfortable with the things that you're not comfortable with, because your kid is gonna it's experiencing the world now, so you literally experience them with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a good parent should do, instead of, or not to say what a good or a bad parent should do, but I think good parenting is, letting your children experience the world and
Mm.
having them different experiences. And they can't do that at either extreme, whether you're like a helicopter mom and you're just do around your kid 24/7.
Mm.
And it's also like you're not going to be part of it and see it if you're in the opposite end of it, which is like you just let them do whatever. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? I kind of want to place myself in like a safe, cozy middle for me,
Mm.
where like, yeah, you can do what you can, but I still want to like kind of see what you do, or whatever, if you will. But who
Mm.
knows? Maybe that's not a good thing. I don't know. But that's just what I feel comfortable with. And that's what the hell I'm gonna do. Because
I mean, I don't. I agree with you. I don't think we can prepare for everything. I'll tell you a funny story. So I love my kids, and I should say I teach at an inner city school. So my kids, I love my little ghetto kids. That's what
yeah.
I call them, and they are ghetto. Like, and the way my kids and I we speak to one another, we understand the context of the language that we're using.
Hmm.
But we had this experience, and I always tell the kids beforehand, like when we go to like a museum or we go to a college trip, don't be ghetto. This is not the place for it at
Yeah.
all. And so,
And is there a shared understanding of what that is?
oh yeah, the kids
Okay.
know exactly what that is
Okay.
because I will explicitly tell them
Good,
what
good.
that is.
Because sometimes people will be like, don't be this,
Yeah.
but that could be so many different things.
Or I show them videos. I'm just like, this is ghetto. So my kids know.
Don't do this.
My kids know exactly what I mean, and they know like I'm ghetto, and
Yeah.
I tell them like I know when to turn it off,
Yeah.
and you guys just have to know when to turn it off.
Yeah, yes,
So
absolutely.
we ended up going to a college trip, and of course, like the kids are going to be kids, and they want to test the boundaries. I always tell the kids like, test them. I'll give you the consequence you deserve. And we had a group of these boys, and they were ghetto.
Ghetto.
Like the N word spilled out,
Oh
like
gosh.
B word, the
Oh
F word, the
gosh.
derogatory term for gay people. The F word just
Oh.
being said. And I'll tell you what was so crazy about it. They're saying this in a safe space in an LGBTQ
Oh God.
people of color space in a college, and I'm just there like I was so infuriated.
Oh my God. Because you're like, did
Yeah.
you not have this fucking conversation? I had this conversation with y'all in the car,
Yeah.
and this is what y'all gonna do? Oh man.
We go back to school. I was like, close the door, we need to talk. Close the door. Let the kids have it. Gave them consequence. I was like, we had all these fun things planned out for the rest of the school year. Those boys were not allowed to go at all. Not allowed to. No, I just cut it all out. And then at the end of it, the boys actually, we got super close. Boys were actually like, Mister, you were right about that. Like, we were really ghetto. And I was like, oh yeah, you were. So it's very interesting to like have an understanding for the kids, and I love my kids. I truly, truly do. But also, like,
you have to have the standard.
Have to have a standard.
And it has to be a high standard.
And you have to follow through the consequence.
Yeah.
That is, I think, it's so interesting because, like, when I teach ninth grade, it's so easy to follow through with a consequence and to be disciplined and to redirect them. It's super easy. When I was around your girls today, like, oh my God, your girls are so adorable. It was the hardest thing to be hard on them. Be like, hey, stop. And I was like, oh, but your eyes. Oh, but you're about to cry. Oh, okay, keep going.
But also, they cry so often that you get immune to
it. And I'm not used to that because like today I was just like, oh my God, she's crying.
Yeah, like remember, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that's gonna happen 15,000 times more throughout the day.
Yeah,
Emmy has a breakdown where tears and like
it was so
body will manifest and will go into it, and then you just be like, let's do this. Okay, and she'll just switch like a little squirrel and just go do something else.
That was the most interesting thing. I swear to God, it wasn't until we came back home today and like 2-3 hours before we put them to bed that I finally noticed that. Because all day today I was like, oh my God, because I felt like kids' tears last a lifetime. Yeah. They actually really last no more than 5 minutes. I was like, if I just put up with it for 5.
And I mean, you saw how many times she would just randomly start crying. And then I would just have to stop and be like, Emmy Mar, what's wrong now?
Yeah.
And then she'll stop crying and hold my hand and then keep walking. I'm like, okay.
I'll tell you the funniest little thing that happened. You were on the phone, so then I had a chance to be like, okay, Kib's dad is here. Like I gotta be serious and stern. And so Emmy Mar had this little toy. And then Emmy really wanted it. And then they were like fighting back and forth. I was like, break it up, girls. Stop. Emmy started crying. I was like, not the time to cry. She's like, I was like, oh my God, I stopped child tears. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for this.
You don't, but I'll let you think that.
And then eventually, I was able to negotiate with the girls. I was like, you're going to play with this for a while. You're going to play with this. Afterwards, you guys will trade. And then eventually, it never got to the trading part because they forgot all about it. But like, I just needed to stop a fight, and it was so interesting to like discover like, okay, when do I intervene? When do I take a step back? When is this something serious? When is it like, and it's so hard to notice at first because the tears seem so real.
Yeah.
And then the crying seems so authentic.
It is, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like when you're that age, you feel everything profoundly. Because it's like that's like, you know what I mean? They haven't been faced with having to like bring down their emotions or filter their emotions. They don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah.
So everything that they express is like their raw emotion, which is why I let them like just, if you want to cry. Like I've literally just sometimes like Kibs, like I'll be driving and they'll just be crying and literally I would just pull over. Because I like my brain, like I just pull over, put the window down, and just look at the sky and just let them like, and then they'll see like, oh, mom stopped, what's going on? And then their attention will be brought to like, oh, mom stopped the car, and then I'll keep driving again because it's like it's insane. But 2 things that I wanted to say: one about what you were saying about the high standards. And follow through with consequences. That's huge for parenting as well. And that's like my growth area because I've literally and the importance of having a routine. Like routines help kids feel safe. And I've learned that with my kids, and you can incorporate free time and independence and whatever in your routine, but like kids really do feel safe when they have a routine that they can reference, a routine that like I noticed like when I didn't really have a routine, like my girls would just be so scattered, like emotionally, or like, everything was just so much.
Mm.
But once I started incorporating a routine, and it could be like very little, it doesn't have to be like, those Pinterest routine that you see, it's
Mm.
like 9 a.m., like, no, it doesn't have to be super detailed, but like we have an idea of like, okay, we're gonna get home from school, we're gonna have dinner together,
Mm.
there's gonna be bath time, there's gonna be reading time for you to calm your bodies, like it's really helpful for them. And you really and with the consequences and follow through, that's like a life lesson you're teaching them right there, like
Mm.
that your actions do have consequences.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I love about this free range parenting too, because what they were saying, the kids, like, oh, I learned from my mistakes,
Mm.
it's not something that like, let's avoid mistakes, no, let's actually have them.
Mm.
This is a safe space, like you as a parent, like me as a parent, like let me create a safe space
Mm.
for my kids to know that it's okay to make mistakes.
Mm.
And I'm not gonna lash out and go crazy when they do make a mistake. Rather, we're gonna figure it out together. Like that's beautiful. That's what I want for my girls,
Yeah.
for them to feel safe making a mistake, and coming to me and helping them figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, 100% actually.
But
100%.
it's so important, like, and that's the hard thing, consistency, because for
Mm.
you to be able to follow through with consequences, you have to be a disciplined person, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
know what you say, and remember that, like, if you said, hey girls, you're not behaving right now, so when we get home there's no TV.
Yeah.
I got home and I did not turn on the TV.
Yeah. Good point. That was really
You
good actually.
can't, because
Yeah.
if I do turn it on, then all the crap I talked at the park, it's BS now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they know that, and they get on to you. They'll be like, "Oh no, mommy's just saying that, she doesn't really mean to." Like,
Mm.
no, I want them to know that I mean what I say, because
Yeah.
words are important, but it's hard to have that follow through. Like, and today I had help because you were here,
Yeah.
but I could have easily come home, been really scattered, or felt really out of place, and
Mm.
I might have turned on the TV
Yeah.
just to have them calm down for a minute before I calm down.
Mm.
So it's crazy, like so many factors go into it. And when kids have each other too, because raising one kid is one thing, but then having two,
Mm.
and then seeing them like interact with each other and see like the things that you have to talk about, or like the things, that's something I've learned with them. Like before I would get into every big bickering,
Mm.
they would be fighting about something, I would feel like I needed to go in and figure it out for them.
Mm.
Now kids, I just sit back. I'll be in the kitchen, I hear them fighting about something, literally until I hear like real tears, or like until I hear something bad happened, I just let them, and 9 times out of 10 they'll figure it out amongst themselves.
Mm.
But there was a point where I would get into it all the time. And then my cousin, I think actually, and my mom were like, no, Margaret, let them. Like, that's what they want. They want you to go in there and, figure it out for them. Like, just let them. They're having a problem, they can figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I've done that and it's been like amazing.
I
Because
love that.
before I would want to like butt in, oh my God, what's going on here, girls?
Mhm.
Let's talk, let's figure this out. And I still do that, but like you said, I choose my battles.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I choose my battles now. Like, I'm not getting into every battle. Like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of every battle. Like, I choose the ones that I want to be part of.
It would be super exhausting to be in
Yeah.
every battle as well, actually.
Exactly.
On my I was telling you in the car that like when I have my kids the very first day of school, I give them a 10-page contract.
Yes,
And
I
I have
love
them
that.
read it, and then they have to sign it, and then after that they have to write me a 5-paragraph essay on it as well. Yeah, that's like literally how
To really hone in the point.
exactly. That's how I start. Literally, the very first day of school. That's what they're doing the very first week of
And
school.
what is the prompt for the 5 paragraphs? Just
What do you think about the 5? What do you think about the 10
how to
page
make them
contract?
feel.
Yeah, do you agree with it? What parts do you disagree with it?
I
not
love
that I'm
that.
Gonna, not that I'm gonna change anything.
Right.
but just so you're right.
Right.
What parts do you disagree with?
Practice the skill of giving feedback.
Exactly.
You know?
And if you were to add something into the contract, what would you add in? And so that's the 5-paragraph.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we end up, and the funny thing is that I would say 8 out of the 10 kids, 80% of the kids ended up really liking the contract because it gave them what I expected of them this year,
Yeah.
you know? And
Laying out expectations is really important.
super important. And
Yeah.
when you come into my classroom, the very first thing that you see on the board, it's there the entire year. Freedom is responsibility. So the kids even quote that by first semester, first quarter. I mean,
Hmm.
they already start quoting that themselves. And I'm just
Yeah,
like, what
yeah.
am I gonna say? Freedom is responsibility, Mister. I forgot to turn it in. Do I have an extension from the deadline? I just point at the board now, and the kids be like, "Okay, got it." And so that for me has been super interesting. But again, like it's so easy to do that with high school students
Yeah,
because there is a hard truth that you can tell them that
yeah,
for the most part, most of them are ready to accept. Like there's
yeah,
very little coddling and hand holding. But
yeah.
one thing I had to learn today when I was redirecting the girls is that like I can't talk to them how the way I talk to high school students. Like my
Yeah.
voice is so much softer now. Like even when I'm talking to the girls, I'm like, sweetheart, you can't do that. Sorry,
Yeah.
sweetie, you can't jump in there because you're
And
gonna
isn't
get
that
wet.
crazy how like that happens naturally? Like
Super
it's
naturally.
insane.
But it's also because like there is a. I remember an old friend of mine. We were talking about like how do you discipline your kids, and she had a 5 year old, and she was
Mm,
telling me that what I do is I create loving boundaries for them. So when they're in
mm,
high school, I create boundaries for them. The love comes after the fact, but you
mm-hmm.
have to discipline the kids first. You kind of have to come off as an asshole, and the kids already, they tell me that the very first quarter. I'm like, yeah, right, I am an asshole.
Yeah.
By second and third, they actually appreciate me, and we end up becoming very close. But first quarter, I do
Yeah.
want the kids to hate me. That's the goal.
No,
Um,
honestly. And I think that happened to me when I was in high school. Like the teacher that was the most strict
yeah, exactly,
and who I thought I hated the most turned out to be the one of the best teachers till this day that I've ever had.
exactly.
Miss Turnipseed. Like she was the best, like so
What did she
calm.
teach?
English.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
it's
you know
always
this.
English
Yeah.
teachers. You guys always just figure it out because it's like, yeah, no, like this is the rules. This is what you have to do. And she wouldn't be like, "Oh, Margaret, like, here, do this." Like,
Mhm.
and I would be like, I hate you. But she was just teaching me, you gotta have freedom to make your own choices, but then every choice has a consequence.
100%. And then so what's very interesting is that like but with little kids though,
Mm-hmm.
because like they are not ready, they need far more guidance and they're
Yeah,
not
so
ready
much
to
guidance. Yeah.
bear consequences yet. What you do have to create is more loving than the boundaries
Yeah.
part of it. So like so for that I stress that part like, hey sweetheart, sorry, you can't
Yeah,
do that. Like
yeah.
hey, just giving them like a little go guiding their shoulder a bit, like being like, "Hey, come here!" Like you can't do
Yeah.
that, and that is very interesting to get into that mode because that's a skill I'm not really good at, but it was
Yeah.
very interesting to practice that today. It's not something I'll be using in high school,
Right.
obviously
No.
not, but it is something that like as I'm around kids much more often, as I come here more often. That's something I'm really a sword I'm really looking to sharpen. Like, okay, how do
Yeah.
I do this?
And it's awesome that you were able to pick that up. That yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes to little kids, you can't lead with the structure and like the
Yeah,
hardness first.
not
The
at all.
love has to come first.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful, that we're doing that because I mean, even when I was growing up, like I feel like a lot of people in my family did the opposite. Like they were
Mm,
like really strict. And like I feel like the love came later
yeah,
and not in the beginning. And I think if anything, like they're just so babies. Like they're
they are.
literally experiencing the world. They're experiencing everything for the first time. You're setting up you're just setting them up for
Mm,
whatever. So like you have to do that with love. Like there's no way around it.
100%.
You have to do it.
And like I remember when I was around my friend and she had her 5 year old, I remember like getting down on his level and like literally getting on his knees and trying to see the world the way he sees it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, this world seems so big to you. Like
Yeah.
even this apartment is ginormous. Like it must
Yeah.
seem so that in itself is already intimidating. So everything else is already gonna feel so scary. And every
Mm-hmm.
emotion is already gonna feel like something you can't handle. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of like one thing I learned as I was with your girls today is like I need to be extremely calm and equanimous, and I need to come from a place of complete serenity. And because I need to, my
Yeah.
mentor calls it empty out your room. You empty out your
Mm-hmm.
room so you can hold as much space as you can, because
Yeah.
like they are gonna cry out of nowhere and say
Mm-hmm.
random stuff and like and fight about meaningless things. I'm just like, oh
Meaningless
my
things
god.
constantly. Like
So
there'll be a million sticks on the ground. They'll
yes,
both be fighting for the ugliest,
yes,
nastiest looking stick, but that's the stick that they both are gonna fight over.
yeah,
Even here, like kids, like in their room, everything is double.
yeah,
Like I literally try to be so identical with
yeah.
everything that I get them, and they still fight over it.
Oh yeah.
So now I don't even care. I'm like, we go to the store. Before I used to stress getting them the same thing. Now I let them each choose what it is that calls the most attention to them, because at the end of the day, they're gonna fight for it anyway,
Basically,
and that's
yes.
not gonna, change.
it, it's just so interesting, like navigating their world and like navigating their emotions and also
Yeah.
like guiding them through it as well, and giving them that space to explore and express those emotions, because
Yes.
I feel like that's the greatest gift I can give my my kids and also even my students. So one of the things I tell my students all the time is, behind closed doors, if we close a classroom door, you can say whatever you want to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a chance to say that to my teachers, and I felt like I had to suppress a lot of emotions as a kid,
Yeah.
and to put on a mask and to be perfect. So like I tell my kids, like, if you think I'm an asshole, you can tell me that. And then the kids have taken advantage of that, and I also don't mind. And I tell the kids, well, this is a two-way street. I also think you're lazy and you play this victim role and you do no work, and that's why you're failing my class. And the kids are like, actually, that's fair, mister. and then we build like a place in honest and in genuine bond,
Yeah.
So then that way, no one is wearing a mask anymore. And that's how I
Yeah.
got. So the kids, teachers always wondered why I got so close to the kids, because I just let them be that honest.
Oh my god, right? They're probably like, "What's your secret sauce?"
Yeah, and but the thing is, and I tell teachers that, and there's like, no, I could never do that. It comes with like a lot of. I remember one time I messed up on. I told the kids I was gonna grade something, and I think that was the weekend I came here to Providence, and we just like partied and stuff like that. And then the kids held me accountable, and I had to bear that. And the kids, no joke, they turned to the board and they turned to freedom is responsibility, and it's like, Mister, and I was like,
You right.
you got that.
You right.
You're 100%
You
on
right
the money.
though. You
And
right.
a lot of teachers can't check their ego like that. And then,
Oh yeah, you gotta check your ego.
oh yeah, and one girl, she got up, and these girls, like, they, like the
Yeah.
the mouthiest one, they're super attitude. She's like, Mister, you always talking about that, freedom is responsibility, and you don't give grades, we earn them. What did you earn for your behavior? And I'm just there like, clearly I earned this.
Yeah.
You chewing me out. And it's fine, but that wasn't easy to literally have these,
And that's the
kids.
same thing with kids.
Yeah.
With kids, they check. You gotta get your ego checked all the time.
Yeah.
They literally, this is the same thing with kids. They check you all the time. Like Emmy, like she was like, "Mommy, don't push me," and I didn't feel like I pushed her, but to her, maybe that little nudge that I gave her felt like a push, and she was like, "Don't push me," and then I was like, "Okay." So yeah, no, I think I don't know, especially me having girls, like my number one goal, I think, as a parent is to just always remind them of their self-worth and the love that they get from me. I think that's like the most important thing, especially as they're going to venture out into this world where they're going to be exposed to so many things. Like I want them to always know that they are capable and worthy and like the best. You have to build their confidence, and that's the thing. I think teaching high school students, you don't really have to build their confidence. They're high school students, they're just coming into the ninth grade, or maybe you do, I don't know. But with my girls, I have to build that. I have to like build their confidence. And actually they come already so confident.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, but so the thing is then not turning their confidence down.
Exactly.
Because now that I think about it, my girls are very confident. They're very self-aware.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do I cherish that and keep that and not knock it off with my parenting or whatever it is that I'm doing as like the leader or whatever in the situation.
I'll give you an example of where I had to build one of my kids' confidence. So one of my kids last year was really interested in traveling abroad, and I was like, yeah, of course we can travel abroad. And I found this program for her. I'll say her name because she's already on the line anyway. Her name is Yadira, and she was very nervous about it at first because it was like, whoa, like you see the price of traveling abroad and the thought of like going to another country and also like buying your plane ticket, all of that was just like, whoa, how do I do this, you know? So what I've noticed, and what I've learned from that experience is like whenever you're building a kid's confidence, you have to do it in an isolated area. You have to be secluded with them the same way as you're training a dog, and you can't let anybody else kind of disturb that. And so what happened is that when we were just in the dream was in its infancy and having the kids apply and stuff like that, I told them until you get accepted, share all your insecurities with me. Don't talk to anybody about like how you're gonna fund money, or don't talk to anybody about like you're being nervous about traveling abroad. Don't talk to anybody about like how scared you are to be in another culture. Because the truth is that people might plant doubts in you. And what I need to do is I need to show you that all of this is possible and give you solutions to all your questions.
Right.
Because I remember there was this teacher, no shit on her, by the way, because she just had a very different perspective. I remember she came up to me and she was like, whoa, like I could never send a kid abroad. I can't even get onto a plane myself. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Period. Because you're right, you could never do
right
that,
and again you project those fears into other people.
So then whenever I would see my kids, I would show them videos about like, oh, this is this person traveling here, this is how this country looks, this is what these people do, and connecting with people who've been to these countries so that way they can hear stories about people who've succeeded there. So I made sure that I shut down that conversation with that teacher so that way she would never infect my girls with her ideas. And then when it came down to my girl Yadira finally got accepted, then you share the dream. Then I had her go out and build her confidence in another way by going out asking for money, for donations, going out meeting the principal, the executive director of the school, and having conversations with them to tell people that because the confidence has been built up for the entire 6-7 months to
and where
get
did
it
she go point. Again?
She went to Japan.
Yeah,
and she just came back and she was so excited about it, so happy about it. She wants to go again next year.
You see, that's amazing.
But it would only happen if I didn't seclude her, and there's so many people out there who think because they can't do something, they'll project that onto their child, and that really annoys and frustrates me. So I try to cut that down as quickly as possible, and then sending the kids, like whenever I have this, I have a WhatsApp group with the kids and the parents, and I'm just sending motivational things, travel things all the time, so kids already start to visualize and see how this is going to look for them.
And it's why it's so important to, as a parent, like I think anybody who's listening or anybody that comes upon this, like if you're a parent, the most important thing is working on yourself. That's with everything, because it's like I became such a better mom the more grace and love I gave myself, the more acceptance I gave myself, the more I allowed myself to make mistakes and not ridiculed by them, but actually taking them as learning opportunities. The more I did that, the better parent I became. You know what I'm saying? Like the more I learned, like I was telling you about controlling my own emotions, coming into just finished cleaning the house, you go into their room, they've just destroyed the room.
I can see that happening.
The initial thing for you to lose your fucking shit. Because you just cleaned the whole fucking house. But you have to think they're little kids, they're 3 and 4-year-olds. What are they gonna benefit from seeing me lash out at what I didn't want to see? But rather it looks better. Hey guys, I'm not happy.
Mm,
this upsets me. Mommy just spent hours cleaning,
mm,
and you guys destroyed the room. So now you're gonna clean it up. I'm not gonna clean it up.
mm.
And of course, it didn't do a great job, but at least they started. Trying to pick
Exactly.
up things, and mommy, and they threw a tantrum because they were hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my ass was the one that did all the work, but they were hurt. They were like, "Oh my god, you're gonna make us clean?" Like what? And I
Mm,
was like, "Yeah," because So that was huge for me. Like I
mm,
when I was, poor Emmy. Emmy got the worst mom side of me from like her birth to like 12 months, I would
mm,
say, because you just don't have that patience,
for
and you
sure.
know what I mean. And I never saw my mom cooling it down or like
Mm,
taking a deep breath. I always kind of saw my mom, yell and
mm,
become really upset because she hadn't learned those emotional coping mechanisms that you need to learn, to be a successful parent. So I always say to people that tell me they want to be parents, or they're thinking about starting a family, like just work on yourself, like really know
mm,
how you look like when you're angry, how you look like when you're upset, what makes you lose your top, like all those things. And most importantly, like really being a parent pushes you to confront a lot of things that you might have gone through in your childhood.
Ooh-wee. Yeah.
And that's a big one right there. And I've read books about it, and like you really confront a lot of things, whether it's beautiful things because you might be like,
Mm.
oh my god, I remember this memory of parents doing this with me, or it might be like a negative thing, or like,
Mm.
oh, you may remember this awful thing. So like really being open and having like that safe space with yourself too, to revisit the past, because I think if you're a parent and you're really truly going in there and going there, you're going to be confronted with a lot of things from your childhood, and it's in your best interest to try to confront that to the best way that you can.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Ooh, I
You
can
have to do
imagine.
that, but it takes time. I'm trying to do it now, like I've actually considered going to therapy.
Mm,
Like I never even considered going to therapy before, but after I became a mom,
mm,
and I'm like, oh my god, like I don't want to project any like fears or trauma into my kid that is not necessary. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like, but how do I even do that if I don't even know what that looks like for me? So like let me figure that out, and then I can be like, no, I'm not gonna be passing down anything that your kids don't. Again, I don't need to burden them with any of my baggage, because that's
mm,
like for me to deal. And I feel like, I don't know, me growing up, I feel like I always had to deal with a lot of my parents baggage, and I don't think it really benefited me in any way to do that, especially early. I
mm.
mean, of course it taught me to be more responsible and more resilient, but it's like I didn't need to do that. Like
Yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
skills could have been nurtured through other things, not that. So I try not to do it, but again, that might look different to everybody. Everybody's story is different, and not being ashamed or feel bad for
Mm,
anything that this life is beautiful, and we have to cherish it and take advantage of it. But the way to do it is, by not being afraid to go there. And being a parent makes you go there. Mm-hmm.
I remember a friend of mine said that, like, when you're meeting your kids at whatever age those kids are, you're also meeting yourself at that age. I
Yes.
remember, like, when I
Yes.
thought about coming here this weekend, and we talked about, like, me, like, you basically teaching me how to dad. you know, I was so petrified,
Oh
and the
my God,
reason, oh
really?
my god, yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, you know why I teach ninth grade? The reason why I teach ninth grade is because that's when I met my mentor at ninth grade. So that's
Mm.
actually where he started teaching me responsibility, accountability, how to present yourself, like how to code switch. Like, so I can teach that to kids because that's where I had somebody intervene in my life and
Mm-hmm.
enlighten me and drastically change my life. Yeah,
Honestly.
but also, like, you have to imagine, I'm meeting your kids at 3 and 4. 4 years old, I'm getting on a plane from Haiti to come to America.
Mm-hmm. It's different.
There are so many suppressed memories I don't think I will ever see.
Yeah, same.
Nor do I want to
Same.
actually see.
Same.
And then,
There's so many things that I'm like, I don't even want to unpack that shit.
so then I'm thinking like today when before driving here I was like, oh my god, like what am I going to see? Because like I just remember vaguely, obviously, at that age, I just had to mask and suppress a lot because my parents were managing a lot because they came here,
Right.
as refugees. So they're
Mhm.
managing so much. So it's like their goal is to create a space for us to just live in America. It's not
Yeah.
really a safe space because we were in a dangerous neighborhood because that's all we could afford. And it's so all of these things are happening. So like that's why like I just grew up in a way where it's like you just figure it out. Not that my
Yeah.
parents didn't care and love me, they did. I
Right.
think it's showed differently when you're refugees. But
Yes.
so then I'm just like, okay, like how do I engage with these children differently than how I engage? And then
Yeah.
I kind of have the privilege of being here and getting like a test run because this is what is test drive for me because you know I'm kind of like just their uncle, like they're not my kids.
Right.
So getting the practice in now is really good because like I wouldn't, if those were my kids, I wouldn't have known what to do if these were my kids right now, I wouldn't have known what to do for a kid who's just screaming and having a random tantrum.
Yeah.
Today I got to see what you did and I was like, oh shit, that's what you do. Just let them
Oh my
have
god, and
it for
please
5
give
minutes.
me
You know?
feedback. I always like to ask my friends that don't have kids to like tell me anything that, because I feel like when you have other parent friends,
Yeah.
they'll give you advice, but then they won't, because it's like, oh, I can't tell her to do something that I'm not even doing with my own kid.
Yeah.
So the advice is already like a little, filtered, because it's like I can't tell you to do that because I'm not even doing that with my own kid.
Yeah.
But I feel like people that don't have kids, I like have an interesting perspective on it. So feel free to tell me anything that you're like, Margaret, I think you could have done that better, or I think I could have seen you do that a little better, because I totally open to feedback.
I genuinely don't. I mean, I'm pretty transparent. I would have told you if I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
something. No, I didn't actually. But it's what's interesting is that the way I feel like you guide your kids is similar to how I guide my dog if my dog were a human being.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, you let the kids run free. Give the kids that space to
Yeah.
explore that emotion and to express it. And it's done in a safe and healthy way. Like I think that's
Yeah.
super duper important. So like I had a really, really good time today. I'm excited to come back
Yes.
in September, October, however we plan that in the future.
Anytime.
Yeah. So because this has been a very good learning experience for me because I want to make sure that I have the necessary like intrinsic skills
Yeah.
to like deal with myself around
Yeah.
children and also have a space where children feel like they can comfortably manage and navigate through whatever difficult emotions they're having as well. So
You're gonna
it's
be
very,
a
very good.
great parent.
If I continue the necessary, this is one thing. Like I get that compliment a lot, and it's very flattering. But and I get that as a teacher too. But what I tell people all the time is like the reason I feel like I get that compliment is because like there's a teacher at school who I think is a great teacher. I ask him to sit in his classroom during my prep periods, and I sit there and I just take notes and I just learn from him. So that's what helps me become a better
Oh, that's
teacher.
so cool.
Yeah, he helps me become more structured, more ordered. And there's things he does that I do differently because he teaches a younger population.
And what's his subject? What does he
And he also teaches math, so it's a different
Oh.
subject. So we go about things differently. But through him, I've become more structured and ordered,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I organize my board differently than how I started.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly the same way I want to treat parenting. It's like it's constantly learning. Like I'll sit down with a parent and I'll just watch them and I'll observe.
Yeah.
So I feel like I will be a great parent, but it is through the constant learning and the constant mistakes, So.
And parenting, it's like you never, I mean, I don't know if some parents feel like that, but I'm never like, oh, yup, I'm perfect. Like, like, okay, like, that there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
And, like, my girls are just getting started.
Yeah,
like,
no.
literally, this is like round one, I guess, of life. Like, they're gonna go through so many experiences, and I just wanna be their weird friend that's in the background, always rooting for them and cheering them on. and just be part of life with them. Yeah.
Margaret, I said everything I want to say. I always leave the guests with the final word. Is there any final thoughts that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Any final word? Thank you to those people that did what
Free
is it?
range parenting?
Free range parenting. I think it's so fascinating. I think it really pulls you out of the parent bubble of like what are the set of rules that you're following,
Yeah.
and what those rules mean to you, and do you actually want to follow them? And it pushed me to think about that, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that, because there's always room for improvement. You can always incorporate different things as a parent and learn. So I appreciate this conversation. Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna tell you when we're off air, so that way you don't say any. We don't. Either
Can I
one
say
of us
anything weird?
Yeah, exactly. All right, off air.